Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk about mathematical inconsistencies in the K through 12 school system and how specifically do we provide a curriculum that allows all students to learn. So I currently teach at a high school in northern Minnesota, and I teach math 9 through 12 along with college classes. One thing that has spurred my interest is, as a student, when I was in school, I really didn't like math. I just knew I had to take it to get to my desired career path, which at that point was not a math teacher. And so through the years, I've kind of investigated how people learn and understand math, because how math started was not originally for everyone. So math curriculum started as a gatekeeper. It was the class that kept people out of their career paths. So it was the one that you needed to pass to get to sciences, and you needed to pass to get to engineering. So math curriculum in the secondary level, 9 through 12, is primarily written for mathematicians. So if you remember from your days, you would have to factor or FOIL or graph and find x-intercepts. And the reality is that not a lot of students past high school use that information. I even had a rousing discussion with my vice principal on how to hook students on FOIL. And I bluntly said, I don't think we can, because it's not very exciting and there is no practical use outside the classroom. However, the skills they learn doing the work is beneficial. How do we move through a process, get stuck, and keep going? But math curriculum in itself is not useful for the majority of students that we teach. So if you look at the graphic here, College of Humanities and Social Sciences, Business, Education, Arts and Communication make up more than the College of Health and Science. So all of the math that we're teaching through Algebra 2 and higher or in the secondary curriculum really is not benefiting all students who go post-secondary and students who go to vocational or not even post-secondary. So there was a initiative that kind of swayed the teaching of math curriculum to a STEM developed model. And so this was a push, a political push, to provide American citizens and U.S. public schools a chance to compete with other nations. So what they found was that students who were educated in the U.S. public school system were not competitive in the global market in terms of math, science, engineering. So they proposed a STEM model, which we also hear of a STEAM model, which includes the arts now, to provide a more well-rounded education to help students who, again, are in a specific subgroup to participate or be competitive with the global market. So one of the things that it looked at was, the K through 12 pipeline, some outreach projects, advisory boards. So they tried to pull in a lot of things to help the math and science curriculum, but the primary goal was to be college and career readiness and to be someone who could be competitive in that field. The STEM initiative is still around. We still have a lot of STEM-based activities. We still have a lot of K through 12 STEM-based learning, which is beneficial for all learners, as generally the goal would be to also use hands-on learning. So someone who may struggle with numerical or numerical computations may have the ability to look at it visually and build and or model something a little bit unique and different. So there are some benefits in the STEM program that help all students. However, it's still, again, designed for students in math and science and engineering. So where did that leave students? So students know that math is a gateway. Students with disabilities generally have a SLD in math, and they also have one in reading comp. There's a comorbidity between those two things. But if you think back to the students who you have had who have struggled in math, how easy was it to identify? Generally, math is not in any other classrooms. So in the secondary level, only the math teacher generally sees the struggles that a student has with math. So if we're talking about identification or evaluation, there's only one person who is looking at that individual to see how they're struggling and to provide interventions to see if that would help. Where in something like reading comprehension, you may see that in a math class with word problems. You may see it in a social studies class, or you may see it in an English class. Or history. There's all these different places where reading comprehension could present itself. Where with math, specific learning disabilities are very specific to numerical computations or numerical sense. So personally, as a general ed teacher, I have very few students with a specific learning disability in math, and in our district, we have a very small amount of students with a specific learning disability in math. So I kind of dug in to see what would one look for in an SLD in math. So it's one of the ones that kind of can hide under the radar for quite some time, especially if they get the use of a calculator. So some people have heard the word dyscalculia, and that is they have difficulty recognizing numbers. They can be delayed in learning to count, so that early intervention is important. They need visuals like their fingers. But if you think about it, everyone starts with their fingers. So the point is, at what point do we not use our fingers anymore? They could have math functions like addition and subtraction could be tough. And nowadays, that push away from memorization and more to modeling in the STEM era, they don't do the times tables, at least we don't. We don't do the times tables for time. So identifying how fast or how fluent they are can be troublesome. How long it completes to take a task, all of these have things that can present itself in other classes, but at the same time, be really hard to pen down a specific learning disability in math because it's not like reading comp or phonetics. It's kind of a global issue. Some other things outside of the math classes, they have trouble remembering zip codes, phone numbers, and game scores. They struggle with money. How much will it? Calculating a tip, which again is a secondary issue. Splitting a check or estimating how much something will cost. In the days of cell phones and other technology, this is something that they can bypass, and so that specific learning disability could be missed because they're using resources already because they know it's a struggle. They can also struggle remembering directions. Well, now again, we have resources that help people for directions. So the big problem with a specific learning disability in math is that we have technology, which is phenomenal, that can help alleviate some of the stress until we get into a math class. And then we realize, especially secondary, that some of these things here can present themselves. So some things that occur with a specific learning disability in math is resources push in. So one thing that we have to consider is how many math teachers do you have in your school, and how many opportunities does someone who is not a math teacher have to provide information in the secondary setting. Sometimes we have a completely different class. Again, that person then needs to be licensed in math or para support. A lot of individuals who help in math are scared of math themselves. So we run into an issue in terms of how do we reflect on math individually. So one thing that may help students with disability and help all students learn is standard-based learning. So one of the big flops in standard-based learning was the Common Core. So the Common Core was a nationalized program trying to nationalize the standards to ensure that everyone in first grade had the same standards. Everyone in second grade had the same standards. And for other subjects, people were not as gung-ho. However, if you think about for math, if there's only one or two math teachers in your school, but throughout the nation, everyone's working on the same standards, you can pull those resources together to help provide interventions at that level. So in other words, it's a big collaboration of teachers throughout the entire nation attempting to provide access to all learners. Now, there was a lot of pushback with the Common Core because not only was it a nationalized program, but it also attempted to provide how and what teachers should teach. So it's okay to provide the what, because that would be the standard-based learning that we're all used to. It would just be nationalized. So Minnesota would have the exact same as North Dakota, which would have the exact same as Florida. Benefit if students move. The problem was they changed the teaching methods so much that it provided stress on teachers, parents, and students, because not only were the standards different, but then the teachers were not allowed to employ their teaching style within the classroom. So I'm not an advocate of Common Core. I'm thinking or providing information on a standard-based learning system nationally for math so we can pull those resources together. As we know, Common Core, specifically math, failed horribly. There was a lot of parent outrage. There was walkouts in North Carolina. There was numerous protests saying that the old way and the new way just doesn't make sense. Why is it taking so much longer? So I think that the big let's change everything didn't help provide an understanding in why standard-based learning or a nationalized curriculum would be beneficial. So with that, we have an issue with teacher expectations and experiences. So this policy push for a national curriculum was pushed back by numerous entities. So one thing that we need to think about is our own expectations, or how our math experience have influenced us and how we present that to others. So one thing that was really present in the Common Core push was the Pygmalion effect. In other words, they did not believe that the teachers did not believe that it should be implemented, and thus they were haphazard or did not really buy into it. Therefore, the students and parents didn't, and then we kind of had that cycle rolling. There's other information out there that says there's studies saying, if a student's given a calculator too early, or if they don't know their times tables, a teacher believes that their expectations should be lower. When we look at students and we lower our expectations, our actions are influenced on how we perceive or treat that student. There's research that says if I don't believe that student could be successful because they can't multiply fast enough, then I tend to, or the research says that the teacher tends to provide lower degree problems, or they give them more wait time, or if they see them struggling, they help out a little faster. So knowing how you're influenced by your math experience also influences how students fulfill to their full potential in a math class. So that complicates matters a little bit more. So a nationalized curriculum, which allows us to pool all our resources together, needs to be one where the teachers understand and respect it, and one that allows for high expectations for all learners, allowing them to learn in their own right.